As you may already be aware, the Russians are putting an extreme amount of pressure on the Ukrainian defenses in a place called Donbass, which is in the eastern region of Ukraine, and the scene of a battle that's taking place just in front of a location called Chasiv Yar. Chasiv Yar is not all that far from a place called Bakhmut, which a year or so ago was the scene of a very bloody battle, mostly featuring Yevgeny Prigozhin's Wagner group versus the Ukrainian troops that were stationed in Bakhmut. And over the course of several months, I think the Russians lost tens of thousands of soldiers in their quest to take Bakhmut, which they eventually did. And as they move inexorably forward, they come up to a place called Chasiv Yar, which is a piece of high ground that the Ukrainians control. And from that position, the Ukrainians are able to see much of the battlefield around them. And of course, they're able to use their artillery and other long-range fires from that position to cause havoc on the Russians that are coming at them. And speaking of the Russians that are coming at them, it's the cunning ingenuity of the Russian people that I just have to shake my head at. They've come up with another means of getting their troops right into the teeth of the Ukrainian defenders before the Ukrainian defenders can really do anything about it. And that method is they're using things like motorbikes, dirt bikes, golf carts, armored golf carts, if you can picture such a thing. I don't think they've stooped to the point of using riding lawnmowers or anything to that effect. But still, what they do is they'll put one or two guys on a dirt bike and rip them across the no man's land. And by that, the thinking is that they're going to be upon the defenders before the defenders can really do much about it. Now, you know, the way the Russians used to do it is that they would send 3 or 4 armored personnel carriers with maybe anywhere from 4 to 6 infantrymen in each. Not very well trained infantrymen, by the way. And those armored personnel carriers would also have with them maybe 2-3 tanks, main battle tanks. And all of these armored vehicles would come across the battlefield towards the Ukrainian positions. And of course, the Ukrainians would open up with their artillery and everything else, their drones. And they would make quick work of that small little invading force, right? But even the Russians have to sort of pause and take note of this, because Russian casualties in the 2.5 years since they've been at this, I guess they invaded in February 2022. The Russians have lost 500,000 in casualties. Now, I'd have to say that probably 250,000 of those, 250,000 of those, are killed in action. So when you're losing 250,000 troops dead and another 250,000 easy on top of that, seriously injured and probably unavailable for the fight, and also what you're left with is very poorly trained, very poorly equipped. Even the Russians have to start taking stock of this and understanding that there's no sustainability to this, that even some point the Russians are going to run out of people. And it becomes that thing like who runs out of which first, the Russians out of people or the Ukrainians out of bullets. So the Russians have adopted this case of, as I said, putting a couple of guys on a motorbike and there you go, comrade, have at it. And off they go across the battlefield. And to date, the Ukrainians don't seem to have much trouble turning these attacks into failed attacks as they were doing before. But again, hats off to Russian ingenuity in the face of dire circumstances. They go back to the drawing board and they always come back with something that has me shaking my head.